The first time humanity's name appeared in the archives of the Galactic Council, it was listed beside a single word: harmless. It was a classification used for worlds too primitive to pose a threat, species that barely managed to leave their own gravity wells. To the great empires of the stars, Earth was a curiosity, not a contender. Their observation drones had watched humanity stumble through its early years of spaceflight, their wars, their experiments, their endless quarrels, and their fragile peace. They saw a world divided, filled with short-lived beings who fought each other more often than they reached for the stars. The Council's analysts had laughed and dismissed them. For centuries that label remained. Harmless, then humanity vanished. Not from existence, but from observation. The probes that had circled the Sol system went dark one by one. The transmissions ceased. The Council thought it was a failure of equipment, a malfunction, or perhaps an act of self-isolation by a species that had lost interest in exploration. No fleets were sent to check, no ambassadors dispatched. Humanity was of no consequence. The galaxy moved on. 300 cycles later, the alarms began. It started in the far sectors of the Dominion of Varn. Worlds that had been prosperous and strong suddenly fell silent. At first, the governors believed it was rebellion. Then the emergency signals arrived, distress calls frantic and filled with static. The words were few, but they chilled those who heard them. Black ships, no insignia, no mercy. The Council convened in panic. Reports poured in from every corner of the mapped galaxy. The unknown fleet moved with precision, striking at supply lines, shipyards, and defense hubs. Every assault was efficient, cold, and unstoppable. No demands were made. No communication offered. The fleets that tried to resist vanished into silence. The survivors spoke of a terrible sight: ships that burned brighter than suns, weapons that tore apart capital vessels in a single strike, and a symbol painted on their hulls, a blue sphere wrapped in silver wings, the ancient symbol of Earth. When the Council realized who it was, disbelief rippled through every chamber. The harmless species had returned, not as supplicants, but as executioners. The first contact in centuries occurred on the world of Orthea, a trade hub at the edge of the spiral line. The defenders prepared their fleets, confident in their numbers. Their commanders dismissed the reports as exaggeration. They had 100 ships. The enemy, they claimed, could not stand against them. The battle lasted 11 minutes. The human ships emerged from warped light, sleek and dark, without the shimmer of traditional engines. They moved like shadows through the void, accelerating beyond known limits. Their weapons did not fire beams or plasma. Instead, pure light split space apart, tearing through cruisers as if they were made of dust. When the defenders tried to retreat, their drives failed. The human fleet had already seeded the system with invisible drones that disrupted all forms of communication and propulsion. When the battle ended, Orthea's sky burned. From orbit, the humans released drones that entered the atmosphere silently. They targeted the shipyards, the command centers, and the orbital cannons. They ignored civilians, but the infrastructure of power was erased. The message was clear. Humanity had returned, and they were not to be underestimated. The Council demanded explanations. They sent envoys, emissaries, and pleas for dialogue. None were answered. The humans did not respond on open channels. Their fleets appeared and vanished without pattern. Their technology defied understanding. The analysts, desperate to find logic, began to dig into old human records. That was when they discovered the truth. Humanity had not vanished. They had ascended. When they realized the galaxy had tagged them as harmless, they withdrew from observation, uniting under one purpose. No longer fragmented by nations or creeds, they had built the Forge worlds. Hidden deep beyond known space, they had mastered the manipulation of matter itself. While the empires squabbled over borders, humanity studied the fabric of creation. They learned to bend light, to create weapons that shattered the laws of physics, to harness power from the quantum storms of dying stars. And they remembered. They remembered the arrogance of the galaxy, the laughter in the reports, the way their home had been catalogued as a harmless backwater. They had never forgotten. The turning point came at the world of Theranis, the capital of the Varn Dominion. A fleet of 300 Varn ships formed a blockade to protect the planet. It was the largest armada assembled in a millennium. The human fleet that arrived was smaller, only 50 ships. The Council watched the broadcast in real time. confident that this would be the end of the human incursion. The first shot fired by the Varn never reached its target. Human counterfire bent through space, striking before light could even travel the distance. Each ship of the Dominion vanished in a cascade of white flame. The battle ended before the first admiral finished issuing orders. The council watched in stunned silence as the human flagship transmitted a single message to every world. "We warned you not to underestimate us." The galaxy trembled. For the first time in recorded history, the council sent a message to Earth. It was not a threat nor a demand, but a plea. They begged for a meeting, an understanding, a chance to stop the war. The humans agreed. The council prepared a grand assembly. Representatives from every empire gathered in the Hall of Worlds, a structure so vast that entire fleets could dock within its orbiting rings. They awaited the human delegation with fear and fascination. When the human envoy arrived, it was not what they expected. No towering warlord, no armored commander, just a single man in a dark uniform, calm and quiet. His face carried no malice, no rage, only patience. He introduced himself simply as the speaker. The council's grand moderator asked the question that burned in every mind. Why? The speaker stood in silence for a moment before answering. "When we looked to the stars, you watched us and called us harmless. You classified us as children. You took our measure and found us small. You never reached out to guide us, to teach us, to welcome us. You only labeled us and left. We learned in the silence you gave us. We grew in the shadow of your arrogance, and now you stand before the consequence of your own neglect." The chamber fell silent. The grand moderator, trembling, tried to argue that the classification was not meant as insult, but as precaution. The speaker shook his head. "Intent does not erase judgment. You saw us as insignificant. That was your first mistake. Assuming we would stay that way was your last." Then he turned and left. In the following months, the war escalated. Humanity did not seek conquest. They sought dominance through demonstration. Every world that resisted was burned, its fleets reduced to drifting wrecks. Yet they did not enslave or occupy. They simply erased military power and moved on. The message was consistent. Humanity would no longer bow. The other empires tried to form alliances, but none could match human strategy. Their ships operated in silence, coordinating through quantum entanglement beyond interception. Their soldiers, enhanced with nanite systems, moved faster and struck harder than any biological species could endure. Even artificial intelligences of the machine spheres admitted defeat when they attempted to breach human encryption. The most terrifying moment came when humanity revealed the Ascendant Protocol. It was a network of orbital arrays positioned across multiple star systems. Once activated, it bent gravity across light years, creating zones of collapse that tore enemy fleets apart without firing a single shot. The arrays were powered by captured singularities, controlled by algorithms that no other civilization could comprehend. When the Council's final defensive fleet tried to invade the human core systems, they found themselves trapped within the event horizon of their own doom. Space folded around them and the fleet was erased. The war was over. The galaxy surrendered not through treaties, but through silence. No empire dared to challenge them again. For the first time, humanity stood as the unchallenged power among the stars. Yet humanity did not demand tribute. They demanded respect. They rebuilt the burned worlds, restored balance where they had destroyed it, and taught their former enemies the cost of arrogance. The speaker returned to the council one last time, standing in the same chamber where he had once been, dismissed as a representative of a backwater species. He looked upon the assembly and spoke with quiet authority. "You called us harmless because you mistook kindness for weakness. You looked at our wars and saw chaos, not resilience. You saw division, not unity, waiting to awaken. We were never harmless. We were patient, and patience, when broken, burns brighter than any sun." The council bowed their heads. None dared to respond. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. Human fleets patrolled not as conquerors but as guardians. The burned worlds became symbols of renewal. The ancient label of harmless was struck from every record. In its place, one new designation was entered: dominant. And across the stars, every child learned the story of the day humanity returned. They learned of the black ships that moved like shadows, the silent fleets that bent the laws of the cosmos, the voice that spoke for an entire species. They learned that the galaxy had judged too quickly, and that judgment had brought its own destruction. On the edge of the known universe, within the cradle of their reborn civilization, humanity looked outward once more. Their ships spread across new horizons, not to conquer,